Hello, this is Mike, and welcome to BitFixer. Today is going to be a little bit of a departure from what we've been talking about recently with 8-bit CPUs, 6502, Z80, memory replacement, etc. And today we have these two PC laptops from different parts of the 90s. This one is a Canon Innovabook 10C. It's a 486SX laptop, and I bought this computer myself in, I guess, 1994 when it was released, and used it for several years and then kind of forgot about it for a long time. Recently rediscovered it, and we're going to take a look at it today, see what kind of condition it's in, and probably have some fun with it. And this is a Sony Vaio PCG-F430 laptop. It is a Pentium 3, and this one I have had for considerably less time. This one I recently found at a local flea market for the grand total of $1. So I was pretty happy about that. And we'll see what kind of condition it's in. Looks actually pretty good, except it's missing a little bit of the plastic here on the top latch. But overall, it looks pretty good, especially pretty good for $1. So let's get into it and see what we can do with these two laptops. So this is a Canon Innovabook 10C. It's a pretty small and light laptop for the time. It weighs a little under 4 pounds. The CPU is a 486SX, and it's one of these subcompact types that doesn't have an internal floppy drive, so you have an external unit like you see here. And as far as ports go, we've got a VGA connector here, we've got an external keyboard, we've got an expansion bus connector, so presumably for a docking station or something like that. Parallel port for a printer, we've got a serial port, and on the side we have the connector for the external floppy. The mouse is an integrated trackball, so control it like that. I remember removing the battery from this computer years ago, which is probably a good thing because there is still some battery gunk in here. There's an accessible compartment on the back containing what looks like the RAM of the computer. There are 4 megabytes of RAM on board, but according to the manual there was a 4 or 16 meg memory expansion card available, so presumably that goes here. And then we'll take the hard drive out to take a look. It's a 44-pin notebook ATA hard drive, 60 megabytes I believe, and it also has a adapter to go from the ATA to the proprietary bus connector inside. And even though the battery was removed years ago, I'm still going to give it a little clean here to get rid of any residual battery junk that may be left over. And some possible battery related damage over here. It looks like the paint on the plastic has bubbled up and is coming off. And there's a fax modem card still in the PCMCIA slot that is missing a external dongle type connector, so I removed that. I don't think I'm going to be using that anytime soon. And give the screen a little wipe. So now that we've given it a little bit of a clean, let's actually turn it on and see what happens. Okay, so screen is good. And good is sort of a relative term for screens of this type. It has kind of a swirly pattern in there, which you can see, and the contrast is not amazing, but it's not bad. And we'll look at this setup here. Yeah, current date, 1988. Just going to leave it as it is now. It looks like we're actually able to boot. Memory test passes. And we're booting into MS-DOS. Looks like there is a mouse driver for the mouse wheel on this computer, but does not appear to be responding. And looks like there's Windows 3.11 installed, but the command to launch it has been rammed out here. And just taking a look at what random programs I must have had on here in the mid-90s. Looks like there's a few games on here, and I think it's the MS Office and Professional Write, it looks like, among others. And we will try to run Windows, the Windows 3.11 install that's on here. So we have a little Canon splash screen, and we actually start loading up Windows 3.11. The only major downside being that the mouse driver is not working. I'm not really sure if it's a hardware issue with the mouse or just a driver issue, but hopefully you can figure that out. So now I wanted to attempt to back up the contents of the hard drive, and I made a quick attempt doing that with floppies, but quickly realized that would take forever, so gave up on that idea. So took the hard drive out of the computer and would try to connect that to another computer that could read it so I could back the whole thing up at once. And for the new storage device on the computer, we'll use a 2 GB compact flash card. I'm pretty sure it won't be able to format to the full 2 GB because of the DOS limitation, but you can use the adapter here, the 44-pin ATA to 40-pin, and then we'll connect the proprietary bus connector so we can get it into the computer. And we will boot from a MS-DOS floppy disk and try to F-disk and format that compact flash card. However, this BIOS is not going to be able to auto-detect the parameters for that CF card, so using a bridge machine that has a slightly newer BIOS, I was able to get some drive parameters, and I punched those in, and let's give it a try. So using F-disk, was able to see the fixed disk drive and create a primary DOS partition. And after rebooting and running F-disk again, we can see that that partition exists, and it has 476 megabytes. So we are not able to use the entire CF card, but that's okay. Hopefully we'll be able to format it. And that's a fast format. Okay. And the volume label, call it bit fixer. And then, yeah, there you go. So I dug up this IDE to USB enclosure to try to copy everything over from the Canon's hard drive and back it up first, and then I would copy it over to the compact flash card. But what I did notice is the first time I tried it using this adapter, 44-pin for the notebook ATA hard drives down to 40-pin, it didn't spin up. And then looking more carefully at the pinout for the 44-pin ATA, notice that the 41 and 42, these two on this row near the end, those are +5 for the logic and motor. And just wondering why it didn't spin up, and verified that I was getting power on, I believe it was power was coming in through the logic, but not for the motor. So I actually had to make a tiny little jumper to jump those two pins together, and then once I did that, then the hard drive spun up. So it was kind of unusual, and it seems inconsistent. I've had other notebook ATA drives that didn't require that, so that was just kind of an interesting tidbit here. So after getting the full contents of the Canon hard drive copied over to my Windows 10 computer, I just copied it right back onto the compact flash card, and we will try to boot it up on the Canon. So starting out completely silent, except for the fan that's on. There we go, we're starting up. It's running the same. Yeah, it looks like it worked. And yeah, we have all of our stuff back here. Did a little more exploration of some of the software I had on here, and I found the beginnings of a game I was working on with a friend of mine in high school, believe it or not. Looks like it was written in Turbo C, and unfortunately when I tried to run it, it looks like it required a mouse driver, and it just started and ended, so that is unfortunate. I'll have to debug that. Also tried out this game Hexagon, which is a pretty fun shareware game from the day, but it looks like now we have a completely silent solid-state hard drive for this 1994 Canon Innovabook 10C, and I'm pretty happy with that. And now let's take a look at the Sony Vaio laptop, which I was very happy to have found for $1 in a local flea market. I never find stuff like this any place like that, so this was a pretty great find. So this is a Sony Vaio model PCG-F430 laptop, and on the back we have a PS2 mouse and keyboard port, serial port, parallel VGA monitor, 2 USB ports, and DC in. And unfortunately I do not have the power adapter. We've also got 3.5-inch floppy DVD CD drive. On the other side we have an iLink port, which is Sony's name for FireWire. We've got an infrared port as well as a video out, and audio in and out jacks, as well as 2 PCM-CAA slots. And on the back we have the port for the RAM, and I believe these are 2 128 megabyte RAM sticks. And under this cover we have a connector for what is probably a docking station. And let's take the 3.5-inch floppy out to have a closer look. And interestingly enough, there's a large sticker on the front of the floppy drive with a name on it, so I've blacked that out. Just goes to show you never know what's going to happen to your computers after they leave your hands. And finally, I'll take the battery out. It's probably bad after this many years. There is a little bit of brownish junk on the outside, so I think we're better off with the battery outside the computer. Let's take a quick look inside the computer to see what's going on. You can remove one screw here, and then the top panel with the speakers slides off, and there's a small ribbon cable you remove. Then to get the keyboard out, you have to lift up on the latch of this small ribbon cable connector to release the cable, and then you undo one screw and then the keyboard comes right out. So now that we have the keyboard off, we can see a little clearer into what's going on here. We've got a hard drive, which according to the specs should be a 6 gigabyte DVD-ROM, and we see a timestamp here, January 2000, so this is in fact probably from 2000, not from the 90s after all. And over here under this is probably the CPU. We've got the PCM-CAA slots over here, so there you have it. That's the inside of the Sony Vaio. And just checking the polarity of the power connector here, and we can see that the barrel is making contact with the metal case, so we can use that as ground, and we'll power up the computer with the bench power supply. So we have the barrel side of the connector connected to the metal frame of the computer, and the center pin is connected to 19.5 volts, and we'll try to power it up for the first time. So while it does boot up, we get this repeated beeping on startup. We'll have to figure out what's going on there. And eventually we get a message that says that we have a stuck key 28 error, as well as the CMOS checksum, which is the bad battery, presumably. So let's go ahead and change the time and save that. And let's try booting up again and see if that makes any difference. So after starting up, we still get the repeated beeping, so possibly it is a keyboard issue. Maybe that's the reason they got rid of this in the first place. Let's try starting it up without the keyboard attached and see what happens. So this time no beeping, and we are booting right into Windows 98. And then we get to a Windows login prompt, again with someone's name actually in the field, which I removed, and somehow it just let me cancel out of this, so I'm not quite sure what security that's providing. Maybe this has to network login, I really don't remember with Windows 98. But here we are in a somewhat functional install of Windows 98 on this laptop. Something strange I noticed pretty quickly was that if you move up and down on the trackpad, it actually moves diagonally. So there's sort of a odd rotation with the direction of the trackpad. I haven't seen something like this before, and I'm not really sure if it's a hardware or software fault. So next, I'm going to remove the original hard drive. We'll try to back up at least the Windows folder so I can preserve any Vaio-specific drivers on here. Spent some time looking around for original driver install disks without much luck for this model, so I at least want to back those up, so if we do a fresh Windows 98 install, we can get back some of the specific drivers. So first attempt of backing up the internal hard drive was to use this bridge machine, which has an IDE interface, so I was hoping I could boot up to its Windows 98 install on SD card, and then copy everything over, and then just copy it off the SD card. But for some reason, the BIOS configuration would not let me boot off the SD card anymore. It just kept booting from the laptop hard drive itself. So ultimately I was able to get that backed up using the IDE to USB enclosure that I used on the previous laptop, and now let's go ahead and get the compact flash formatted and try to install a plain vanilla copy of Windows 98 on there. Fortunately, it looks like the BIOS detected it for 2 gigs, and we can run fdisk and format the drive and then run the Windows 98 installer. Finally, after the install, we're able to boot into our fresh copy of Windows 98. We still have that stuck key error, but we are able to get past it for now. So let's take a look at our fresh copy of Windows 98. So first thing I noticed on booting up into Windows 98 is that the trackpad is now working. If you scroll in one direction, the cursor actually moves in the same direction. And we're missing a lot of drivers here, including the display driver, so it's stuck at a low resolution. So I went ahead and got the display driver files from the backup of the Windows drive, and I was able to get the original Vaio display driver working so we can run at full resolution again. And also got the original driver for the trackpad running as well. So now that we have the computer in a fairly functional state, of course we have to install the game I was probably playing the most of at this period of time, and that would be Diablo, or possibly Diablo 2 at that in the year 2000, but I don't have the installer for it, so Diablo 1 it is. And if you can hear it over the very loud CD spinning, you might be able to hear the famous line from the original Diablo.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
Don't mind me, I'll just go and play this for the next few hours. That will just about do it. We got the 1994 Canon Innovabook and the 2000 Sony Vaio, both working with solid-state storage devices, and they're both nice little machines for running software of their own eras. There are still a couple of things to take care of. On the Vaio we have that stuck key problem, and on the Canon there's the mouse driver issue that I like to resolve. And in fact, when setting up to record this part, the Canon decided it didn't want to start up again. So maybe a capacitor problem inside. I sort of remember it taking a while being plugged into the power adapter to start up the first time, but we will look at that another time. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, please feel free to subscribe or leave a like. See you next time.